The Imperial Dark Troopers are among the most badass of all trooper designs in Star Wars. They've only been growing more popular since their proper introduction to canon in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, but their Legends background is even more extensive. So crank up the dubstep and activate the Dark Troopers as we dive into their evolution throughout Star Wars canon and Legends. Before we even begin to discuss the Dark Troopers in Star Wars Legends, let's meet the man behind the Dark Trooper program. This is General Rom Mohc, who featured most prominently in the 1995 Dark Force video game as the main villain to our hero, the ever-beloved Kyle Katarn. Rom Mohc was a hero of the Clone Wars, serving in the armies of the Galactic Republic and later the Galactic Empire. The general fought and defeated many battle droids over the years, and made a personal collection of them in his personal trophy room. He also developed an obsession with cybernetics and personal combat during the Clone Wars. Unlike many Imperials, however, the Death Star project was something that was against Mohc's martial philosophy, and he was one of few who protested against it. Mohc came to insist that every soldier had the right to face the enemy man to man. Rather than a battle station, he believed in creating the perfect soldier, his perseverance paying off when he received support from the Imperial Department of Military Research. Thus, Rom Mohc began to create the Phase Zero Dark Troopers. These troopers were prominently featured in the classic Star Wars Battlefront games, not to be confused with the less good EA ones. Despite only appearing in a couple of games, their story is quite disturbing. The Dark Trooper Phase Zero project was implemented in the early years of the Empire to deal with a shortage of experienced troops. To return veterans of the Clone Wars to peak condition, their limbs and organs were removed and replaced with cybernetics, using much of the same technology that transformed Darth Vader into a cyborg. In some cases, over 70% of a clone's organic body was replaced. With their years of combat experience and cybernetic enhancements, the units that did make it into the field were undeniably effective. Armed with jump packs and weapons that included arc casters and commando pistols, they were some of the Empire's most fearsome soldiers. However, as the subjects were forcibly recruited into the project, many Phase Zero Dark Troopers could not cope with the state of being more machine than man and attempted suicide. The project was eventually shut down as the Empire grew in power and the recruitment rate of non-clones rose. The few successful subjects of the project became the Purge Troopers, not to be confused with the red ones we see alongside the Inquisitors in the Jedi games and Kenobi series, but the much larger ones seen in the Force Unleashed games. However, the Dark Trooper program was far from over following Phase Zero's termination. General Rom Mohc's work would continue aboard an Imperial ship known as the Arc Hammer, where he'd construct, house, and transport his next generation of Dark Troopers, beginning with the Phase 1 Dark Troopers. Unlike the Phase Zero Dark Troopers, the Phase 1s were not cyborgs, but full-on battle droids. Not everyone in the Empire supported this, as several officers had reservations about droids dating from their days in the Clone Wars. Nonetheless, the Phase 1 Dark Troopers were developed, and while they were little more than skeletal prototypes, they were put into some use early on by General Rom Mohc, guarding Imperial installations. A peculiarity of the Phase 1 Dark Trooper when compared to the later stages is instead of a blaster rifle or some sort of other projectile weapon, it was equipped with a retractable vibro sword and blast shield. Their armor was made of frick, a dense and durable alloy that was difficult for even lightsabers to cut through. Success for the Dark Trooper project was truly achieved with the Phase 2 Dark Trooper. These marked the main stage of Dark Trooper, and they too were equipped with a jump pack as well as an assault cannon capable of firing 400 plasma shells and 20 missiles before reloading. Phase 2 Dark Troopers were also capable of being loaded into hyperspace pods for transportation. Their arc casters could even disable electronics or boil organic beings alive. The Phase 2 Dark Trooper was intended to be used either as an artillery intelligent droid or exoskeleton. Either way, it was extremely effective in battle. A small number of these droids even saw proper action and destroyed a rebel base on Talay. During this attack, the new Imperial troopers broke the base's shields and within minutes quickly wiped out the base and all personnel present, proving their efficiency to Darth Vader. Not content with the modest success of the Phase 2, Rom Mohc went on to develop the Phase 3, To General Mohc, the Phase 3 would be the ultimate battle droid. However, it also served as an exosuit for living soldiers. The Phase 3 dwarfed even the Phase 2 Dark Trooper and was intended to eventually be the armor of the next generation of stormtroopers. It was sometimes even classified as a bipedal tank. Had the project come to full realization, it would have produced the perfect battlefield infantry unit, an amalgamation of a clone's creativity, unpredictability, and initiative combined with the resilience and firepower of a heavy battle droid. The exoskeleton provided its wearer with increased firepower, strength, and durability. The Phase 3 Troopers' standard weapons included a large handheld assault cannon and 2 shoulder-mounted Seeker missile launcher racks that were hidden under the suit's shoulder plates when not in use. Only one Phase 3 Dark Trooper unit was ever finished and was considered the most devastating of all Dark Troopers, with General Mohc using this droid to defend himself and the Arc Hammer from Kyle Katarn when he was killed and the entire ship was destroyed. Furious at the time and credits wasted on the project, Palpatine ended all productions of the Dark Troopers and even went so far as to withdraw funding for all Imperial battle droids being developed at that time, thus ending the Dark Trooper story in Star Wars Legends. But before we dive into the canon Dark Troopers, we have to give an honorable mention to the lesser known Legends Dark Trooper variants that didn't warrant a full entry in this video. This includes the Black Hole Dark Trooper, Dark Nova Trooper, Elite Dark Trooper, Exogen Class Dark Trooper, Glory Class Dark Trooper, Inquisitorium Dark Trooper, Oppressor 7 Class Dark Trooper, Oppressor 9 Class Dark Trooper, Triumphant Class Dark Trooper, Urban Assault Dark Trooper, and Victory Class Dark Trooper. We can now make our way over to Star Wars canon, where the evolution of the Dark Trooper program is a lot less black and white. They're a topic that hasn't been nearly as explored. However, they continue to pop up in new media, with many theorizing the Bad Batch Season 3 will properly introduce the Phase 0 Dark Troopers on Mount Tantiss, with Dr. Hemlock stepping in for Rom Mohc. In canon, Dark Troopers were experimental combat droids created as part of the Galactic Empire's Dark Trooper program. The program's failure contributed to the Joint Chiefs becoming disenchanted with combat droids, aside from the KX security droids. Accordingly, and in contrast to Legends, later Dark Trooper models were actually suits worn by a human pilot. Though we aren't certain of a canon Phase 0 or Phase 1 Dark Trooper, we can infer from these details that there could have been a connection to the DT series Sentry Droid. These droids appeared in the Bad Batch Season 1 and in Star Wars Rebels. They also serve as an enemy type in Jedi Survivor. Given their presence in the early days of the Empire and the fact that the DT droid could easily stand for Dark Trooper, these are likely the first generation or Phase 1 of canon Dark Troopers. DT Sentry droids were equipped with built-in wrist blasters and sometimes carried electro staffs. These Sentry droids were often used for guard missions, and should one of the activated sentry droids fall under attack during such a deployment, the remaining deactivated droids would power on. The most official account of a Phase 2 Dark Trooper in canon comes from the mobile game Star Wars Commander, therefore we must take this entry with a grain of salt. They were clearly modeled after those Purge Troopers we talked about from The Force Unleashed. However, they did participate in the Battle of Tatooine in the mobile game. These Dark Troopers were combat suits and not droids, the suit's helmet featuring a pair of glowing red lenses and an assault cannon that was mounted on the left forearm. But the most famous of the canon Dark Troopers has to be the one seen in The Mandalorian Season 2. Early on in Chapter 16, Dr. Pershing drops a line where he claims the garrison of Dark Troopers on Moff Gideon's Imperial Light Cruiser were a third-generation design. He also makes note that the final weakness approved upon for Phase 3 was the removal of the human pilot, much like in Star Wars Legends. These canon third-generation Dark Troopers were equipped with jet boosters in their feet to enable in-atmospheric flight, and were capable of launching directly from a cruiser, as opposed to having to be deployed in a troop transport. Their armor was clearly very strong, taking direct blaster shots and a flamethrower dousing at close range. That being said, they clearly weren't made of a material as strong as the Frick ones in Legends, because Luke Skywalker's lightsaber cuts them like a hot knife through butter. Sometime later, Gideon upgraded the Dark Trooper from a droid into a battle armor piloted by himself after he broke free from the custody of the New Republic. The armor had a similar style to Mandalorian armor and was built with a Beskar alloy, making it much stronger. It was also equipped with a Mandalorian helmet and jetpack, combining the best of Mandalorian and and Dark Trooper technology. We'll just have to see how heat-resistant this Dark Trooper Phase 4 suit was, and whether or not it turned Gideon into Gustavo Fring in his last scene in Breaking Bad. Come join us to chat more at our community Discord server, linked in the description. If you enjoyed today's Star Wars video, we've got more on the screen for you right now. Also make sure to drop a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe to join the Red Squadron. Until next time, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you. Red 5, standing by.